Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. Contentious politics and crumbling culture are the bread and butter of a good podcast. Sadly, due to a heightened prevalence of allergies and dietary restrictions, bread, if you can find some, is almost all gluten-free these days. And since artificial, seed oil-based butter-type spreads are scientifically proven to improve heart health over archaic actual butter, there is no butter to be spoken of. The truth is, good quality products that are good for you take hard work and effort to obtain. And good quality podcasts that are good for you also take hard work and effort to listen to. But for those who put the work in, the reward is great. Thankfully for this show, we do have some contentious politics and crumbling culture to fall back on. Join Mark and I as I mostly listen to Mark on the EU, the US, the GDP, the CPI, the NPR, the CMHC, and free money for ADUs. To learn more about the show, you can go to our fancy dancy website, twostewards.ca. We have some great resources there if you like free things. Remember, this show is not financial advice, but is valuable for listening amusement purposes. And now, let's start the conversation. The best podcast. We're going to keep that in. Everyone says so. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Brent. Brent's been working with the Chat GPT, the Trumpifier.
Trumpifier.
So maybe we'll have a few Trump notes throughout the podcast. It's amazing what the benefits of AI for humanity, isn't it, Brent?
Yeah, it's ever exponentially increasing benefits to humanity. We're not going to talk about the computing power that it requires and the environmental damage and energy consumption that AI mining or data mining centers need.
And water usage too.
Water usage, that's another big concern.
Well, they use water for cooling, right? So a lot of water gets diverted for these big data centers. But that's fine.
We got lots of water in Canada. We have the most lakes. We're better than the US.
Okay. You're getting a little carried away with the Trumpification. But we want to touch a little bit on some current events. And let's start with Canada. Hey? And your favorite thing, tariffs.
Is that an evil, sinister laugh or like...
it's half and
very
half.
Pleased with these tariffs, Mark?
No, I'm not pleased, but it is. I find it really interesting that we're talking like when you say tariffs, you think Trump, right? All these tariffs that Trump is imposing and how horrible it is. And you see the ads, right? Elbows up and some strange return to Canadian nationalism, whatever that is. Nobody's talking about Chinese tariffs, which are possibly just as devastating. Right. So the main one is 100% tariff on canola. So this is like...
Are we a big producer of canola?
We are a big producer of canola. You might say it's the olive oil of the north. Sorry, that's from the Trump AI thing. But no, it's a big deal for canola producers, right? And, there's some supports through some lousy program.
So why is China coming in now and putting these tariffs on us?
Well, why not? I mean, they can. Well, case in point, nobody's talking about it, right? Because we're all focused on the U.S. And there's some other ones.
Once we start talking about it, they'll tone down. And
yeah, I'm sure that the Two Stewards is going to break this thing wide open. No, it's also, I think, 25% on EVs, electric vehicles, and other stuff as well. So China's, they're flexing their muscle a little bit, right? But we don't see any kind of sentiment about like, oh, elbows up Canada against China and let's, protect our national interests. And no, it's all about the bad man south of the border, right? And like, I agree, let's have some national pride and let's put up a fight and so on. But, it's just.
But we got a new leader.
Oh, we got a new leader. Okay,
and you're saying he's not doing anything about this?
He's doing stuff. No, he's not talking about this at all. And
it's probably
it just points, I think, being cynical, points to the infiltration of Canada by the Chinese Communist Party to the point where like nobody will say anything because everybody's funded by like, especially on the Liberal Party side, by the Chinese Communist Party. It's just such a, like we've talked about this a bunch, right? We'd had Sam Cooper on, talked about willful blindness, the effects on the real estate market, the effects on law enforcement and the Trudeau government specifically. And I mean, all these guys are still rubbing elbows with the Chinese. And again, nothing against the Chinese, but this is...
except for their tariffs.
Well, okay, yeah, I have something against the Chinese state, I will say, not Chinese people, right? And the massive amount of control that they have in Canada. And that's been extended now, I think, to the latest puppet master, Carney, or maybe he's just a puppet, remains to be seen. But the more I see him, the more I feel like he was Trudeau's puppet master almost.
That's tariffs in Chinese. So if you haven't heard that word, Guan Shui.
Okay. Okay.
So if you haven't heard of Chinese tariffs, but you hear that word said sometime, then that's what that means.
Okay,
so
I'm sure everybody's
you're going to hear that word being thrown around.
So speaking about Carney, he had a press conference recently where he said basically the old relationship we had with the U.S. based on mutual trust and economic and military alliance.
Do you have that clip? Do you have
no, I don't have it queued up, but you can Google it.
Yeah.
But he said, this relationship that we had
for hundreds of years
is over, and I find that incredible, especially coming from a man who has not even spoken to Trump. Right? As soon as he became prime minister, I mean, that's a whole other kettle of fish, but became prime minister, elected by the Liberal Party. Typically, this has happened before where you have a caretaker prime minister because you need to have a prime minister, right?
Yeah.
So fine. And it's happened a handful of times in Canada's history.
So you're saying he's a caretaker.
Well, that is the idea. When you have an elected prime minister step down, and somebody else takes his place who's not really elected, and in this case, not elected by the people at all.
Yeah.
It's a caretaker position. You just kind of maintain the status quo, right? We don't have Parliament in session. Parliament's prorogued.
You don't sever your relationship with the largest trading partner.
You don't actually do stuff, right? You just kind of keep stuff going. And this is what the previous caretaker prime ministers have done. It's not unprecedented, but generally they called an election pretty quickly, which he did. But that's just because he thinks he can win. But they weren't governing, making policy change and stuff. So for him to...
Carney, big winner.
Yeah,
Sorry.
for him to say that our relationship is over.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? So immediately when he became PM, he flew where? To Europe to go, forge bonds and ties with Macron and... Starmer, right? The UK, the France, and whoever else he talked to there. While the priority has to be, as much as I'm hey, pay attention to the Chinese, the priority right now has to be the US, right? This is a problem. We got to deal with this. And then, China, we got to deal with that too, but that's not necessarily flying over there. But so he hasn't spoken to Trump. And my contention is that they're just using and prolonging this crisis to create nationalist sentiment, to drive up enthusiasm for the Liberals in the polls, where Carney's he did this dumb ad with Mike Myers. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
Where they're by the hockey rink.
I don't watch ads. I skip those.
This one I watched intentionally.
Okay.
Just to see. But no, he was at a hockey rink and they're appealing to Canadiana, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mike Myers came over and they did some little skit hey, when you think about Canada, what do you what are Canadian values? Which is, that's my question. What are Canadian values? And then, they go on about well, if you think about who were the characters on Mr. Dressup? Oh, Casey and Finnegan. And a bunch of Canadian trivia that only boomers know. And so I'm not a boomer, so, maybe boomers are slightly younger, but there's no Canadian born in the last 30 years who knew the answers to any of the questions that they had. Just
Was
ridiculous.
there any Canadian born in the last 30 years watching that ad?
Well, no, this is he's pandering. I mean, it's smart, right?
Yeah.
But pandering to the voting public. People are going to vote who are overwhelmingly older Canadians.
Yeah.
Right? Younger Canadians they don't vote. So, anyways, what a clown. And maybe not. No, Trudeau is a clown. Carney is something worse, I think, because he is intelligent. He knows what he's doing, and it's not.
Well,
gonna
his
be good for
first
Canada.
order of business is to get into power,
Yeah,
elected
yeah,
with a mandate.
yeah. And then be able to rule.
And
for
what
another
does
4 or 5
what does
years.
Polymarket have his odds at? So we turn to the online gambling center of the universe, Polymarket.
Because they are closer to the truth than anybody else. So Polymarket has Carney at 57% odds to win, compared to 43% for Polyev, which is like stunning. A stunning reversal, right? Earlier, the polls had Liberal Party at like low double digits, maybe single digits, but for like total electoral share. And now you're talking about a potential majority for the Liberals. So it's no wonder that they're using the trade war to their advantage, or trying anyways.
Yeah, and this reversal's kind of happened since the beginning of this year. So in 3 months, it's gone from almost 100% Polyev and 0% Carney, because he wasn't even on the scene.
Yeah.
And then 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, so that's like you got one thing there. It was Trudeau, and he's deeply unpopular. But Carney is like, oh no, we got a new guy now. Let's, and I mean,
what did Trump say? He wants to deal with Carney.
Oh yeah, he said he slammed, and I don't know, right? So he slammed Polyev.
Yeah.
And he said, like, unfortunately, this guy doesn't like me or something like that. Like, I can't work with him, but this other guy I can work with. So I can't help but again be cynical and think that no, this is just Trump playing games, because he knows he's not popular here. Trump, right?
Yeah.
With conservatives, with anybody, right? Trump's the bad man. So if he says, it's just reverse psychology, like, oh yeah, I don't like this Polyev guy, but I like Carney. Is he going to turn people to vote for the conservatives? That's my take on that. I don't know.
You think Trump's that smart, eh? Reverse psychology.
I think Trump is very smart. He speaks in a, I mean, he's a little bit like me, Brent. Very intelligent, can be very articulate, but generally speaks like the common man.
Yeah. He has to dumb it down, and that's why it takes you so long to say words, eh? Because they come into your head so eloquent, and then you kind of have to dumb them down just so that I can understand them. Oh, nice.
For the common man, it's we're all about the little guy, Brent.
There you go.
No, but it's so I don't know. People can slam me, but I think Trump is intelligent, and I think he's affected a particular way of speaking for his persona. That's his shtick, right? And he does it very bigly. So
the relationship between Canada and the U.S. is over, according to Mark Carney.
Yeah, which is just brutal. So, and I mean, he's just inflaming tensions, right? Just saying, that's it. Like, I'm breaking up with you. Like, it's like breaking up with somebody over text. Or getting your friend to do it or something.
I never liked you anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And so coming from Carney, it's a bit rich, right? So because now he's all about, no, we're going to strengthen, like, people have floated the idea of Canada joining the EU. Or like, that is far-fetched.
It's quite far.
Ridiculous.
It's actually over the ocean.
And that's my point here, right? We're gonna let's do more trade with the US, with the EU, at the expense of the US. Well, what about the climate footprint of these big tankers sending goods and sending whatever over to Germany?
Do you care about the climate footprint?
No, I don't.
Okay, but what you're pointing out is that there's a difference in the ideological.
Carney has built his career on net zero, on carbon taxes, on carbon blah, 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 right? See, this is me dumbing it down, Brent, just so you know. Blah, 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 instead of using big words.
So what in practice, he should be following through. Practice what you preach.
Well, it's just another example of what I would call turncoat liberalism values. Or
we're just holding his feet to the fire over
here.
Liberals. Except we're not allowed to burn fires, so it's kind of like the electric stove.
No, but just like Canadian nationalism, right?
Yeah.
It's all this, the elbows up. I know you don't watch ads, but this is the this is the popular cliche right now, right? Everybody's saying it, right? You see Olivia Chow, elbows up, right? It's just like hockey term for like get aggressive, and if you're going in, get your elbows up so you do some
like
damage to the other guy.
Where's the gloves off metaphor? That's coming.
Well, that's coming next. First, you get your elbows up, and then the gloves are off, right?
Then it skates up, and then we go to jail.
But the Liberal Party has spent 10 years destroying Canadian values, saying there is nothing that makes Canada special. There's no values, whatever. And all of a sudden, like the flag is racist and all of a sudden people are like waving flags and like, oh, Canadian values. And we don't know what they are, but elbows up.
Honking their truck horns.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, this is the exact wrong thing to do to Trump. Whether you like him or not, you don't, number one, if you think he's a big bully, well, if there's a big bully and then you're just a little guy, like, don't start a fist fight. It's not going to end well. Like, what, you know what I mean? Fight dirty or distract them or do something else, but don't be like, that's it. We're going to respond with more tariffs. And it's going to be worse for us. And you might hurt him. You might punch him in the kneecap and it hurts him, but he's going to like pound your face in and do a lot more damage to you than you to him. So, but it's useful right now for, for the election.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there was
That's how nearsighted politicians and the political system is. I think we just point to one politician, but just the whole system is, we got to think about us for now and don't think about the future for other people.
Yeah, or if we are thinking about the future, we don't tell anybody.
Right.
We'll do that once we get into power.
It's nefarious.
But right now, it's whatever. It's true. It's what the Conservatives have to do. So, okay, the head of Eurasia Group, a big consultant group, put out a note, and they put out regular updates to people. Ian Bremmer is the fellow's name, and he's been he's well known out there as sort of a geopolitical analyst, commentator. They do a lot of political consulting, but like geopolitical stuff around the world. Anyways, his note said that I expect, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, I expect Ottawa will fold shortly after the vote, after the Canadian election, to ensure that ongoing relations with the U.S. remain functional. So it's like, okay. That's like, and this is one smart guy's opinion. Fine, it's one opinion. But who else works at the Eurasia Group? Gerald Butts. You ever heard of that guy?
Yes. And I forget why.
Because he was Trudeau's right-hand man, like the most powerful person in Ottawa, probably next to Trudeau, for like almost his whole term until a couple of years ago when he got, scandals and he got turfed out. And like he was forced to leave. But he's working at the Eurasia Group. You know who else works at the Eurasia Group? Diana Fox Carney. And that would be the wife of Mark Carney. Mm-hmm. So,
what a name, by the way. Sounds like a Bond villain. She's in there too.
Okay, I don't know if I had this on the last one. I'm just going to do a little more Carney bashing if I can. When he was governor of the Bank of England, right? They get a housing allowance. Right? So like, oh, that's cool.
How many years ago was this, by the way? Like,
governor of the Bank of England, I'm going to say like five-ish years.
Okay. So very recent.
Are you looking it up there?
2013 to 2020.
Yeah. So for a while. Wow. So, okay. This is a guy who has 3 passports, by the way. I don't know if you remember when Andrew Scheer got lambasted for having multiple, like a U.S. and a Canadian passport. Well, he's got UK, Ireland, and Canada. Yeah. So divided loyalties, you tell me. Anyways, Bank of Canada governor first arguably did a terrible job after the GFC by keeping rates too low for too long, increasing asset prices. Make of that what you will. Then he went to the UK. And, there's arguments on both sides, but arguably did a bad job there, led to their pension crisis, et cetera, et cetera. Anywho, I forget my whole point.
Well, you're talking about shares of Brookfield, no?
Yeah, that too.
Just to rub it in. There's just too much, Mark. There's too much to point to.
Yeah, there's a lot. Shares of, okay, I'll get back to my point. But yeah, he owns shares of Brookfield Corporation, which owns Brookfield Asset Management. So he's got his stuff in a blind trust, right? His assets, because he's a wealthy fella, because of course, if you're the governor, the central bank governor, of course
why
you'd
would
be
you
wealthy.
not be? Well, yeah.
Anyways, and so this is all, if this was a conservative candidate, you could say like, oh, you're only picking on him because he's liberal. It's like, no, this is because the values that they talk about are not what they don't practice what they preach. So when he was at Brookfield Asset Management running a couple of funds, global transition funds, by the way, like for climate change, ostensibly, they registered them in Bermuda to avoid Canadian taxes, which is pretty kind of funny, right? And talking about Canada, Team Canada, right?
Yeah.
He just moved the headquarters of Brookfield Asset Management to New York City, like within the last few months before he became prime minister, to avoid Canadian taxes. And
maybe he was just testing out their tax system to see how good it worked so that he could implement it here when he got in power. So you got to vote for him, Mark.
So there was a press conference and one reporter asked him like, hey, are you going to disclose your assets? He's like, no, why would I do that?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And then Rosemary Barton from the CBC, who is like a dyed-in-the-wool government supporter, liberal government supporter, she followed up and said like, why not? And man, he got mad. And he was like, look inside yourself, Rosemary. I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't know what that means. And like,
where is your heart, Rosemary?
Well, he's just again and again with press conferences, like he will
condescending.
Arrogant, smug, condescending. And here's the thing that I had forgotten: the housing allowance. Right? So how much, I don't know, what's the good housing allowance? If you're living in London, which is an expensive city, central bank governor, what's reasonable?
I don't know, like 5,000 a month?
Okay, how about 30,000 pounds?
Per
month.
Per month.
Which is like 60 grand, right? Close to. And his wife.
How much does Buckingham Palace get? Like,
I don't know.
There's suites there for like 22,000 pounds a month.
Oh, man. Anyways, his wife went public complaining that this was not enough and she could not find decent housing for that price. Right? So she's
in touch with the person.
In touch with the common.
We should have her on.
Common man. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Get Diana Carney on the phone. Anyways, it's just, he showed up to one of his first campaign stops in like a ridiculous Rolls-Royce stretch limo. Not just like, get the black SUV or whatever. No, a ridiculously ostentatious vehicle. So what else? What else can I say about Carney? He's been accused of plagiarism in his 1995 doctoral thesis. So, I mean, that's, that goes a long ways back. But it does make sense considering that he's stolen his entire platform from the Conservatives.
Yeah. Well, that's shrewd business. No, you got to look at what's performing well in the marketplace, and
you adapt, you pivot, right? But it is, I mean, again, just hypocrisy, right? He got rid of the consumer carbon tax. And I don't know if you recall the arguments in Parliament about this, where there were people getting up and saying, like, if you drive your car across Canada this summer to go on vacation, you are causing the planet to burn. Right? Like, crazy
Unless
rhetoric.
It's a Tesla.
Yeah, oh, yeah. There's a switch, isn't it?
Yeah. We should talk about that.
Okay, we'll get to the Tesla. But
All
anyways... Right. Like this extreme rhetoric about the carbon tax and how necessary it was, and like the planet is going to end if we don't do this, to like, oh yeah, it's not really popular anymore, so we're going to cut this. He still has the industrial carbon tax on, which is not helpful, but I think it shows you that it's all platitudes. They don't actually mean any of this stuff, which must be so discouraging if you are like a Liberal or an NDP supporter, to find that like, no, none of this stuff really matters. It's about getting elected, and they don't actually care, right? And all this Canada First stuff, like why have you registered your companies outside of Canada? Why have you spent, I don't know, you said 2020, like he only just came back to Canada. The last 7-10 years outside of Canada. Now you're going to parachute in. And he was so smug when asked about that too, right? Like, why do you think that you basically you can just parachute in and become the prime minister? And his response is basically, well, like, look at me. Like I'm global elite.
I got it figured out. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just this sense, like you said, that arrogance and smugness that
you just want to vote for.
I mean, that's fine. I guess you can be a politician and be arrogant and smug as long as you're effective. But I don't believe a word he says. Is what I said. I mean, and other celebrities that he knows. We talked about Mike Myers. How about Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell? Right.
Great guys.
His wife is in the Epstein address book. And her family. So, like, come on, guys. This is, I don't know. Anyways, more trade with the EU. We talked about that. So, I don't know. You want to talk about Tesla?
Well,
that seemed to catch your interest.
Well, I'm just interested how the left often says all these ideological things, and they've, for the last few years, idolized Elon Musk.
Yep.
Which made sense, right? Because he's kind of an environmentally sound.
The savior of the world, literally. Electric vehicles.
Transforming the automotive industry to use less carbon, and it's going to make a green planet. So we have to idolize this guy. But they do this over and over again where they idolize somebody, and then the next minute they cancel them.
Yeah.
As soon as whatever suits their purposes, right? It's hard to catch up with. I find, I don't know about you, but I just find like it's hard to stay on top of the latest with this. Like,
it must be so tiring being a member of the woke left. Yeah. Like, you got to wake up every day and be like,
is Tesla still a thing? Yeah. Is Tesla still like, oh yeah, Tesla today, buy their stock. Yeah. And then now today, no, Elon is.
Brent, what happened?
Yeah,
I just woke up. We don't like Tesla anymore?
Yeah,
no. Nope, go spray paint or firebomb their
so now everyone, like, what is who was calling for basically the destruction of like Tesla vehicles and
a number of US politicians.
So
like, ridiculous. Tim Walz is out there doing his shtick.
Total 180. I find that quite profound, just how you could turn on a dime and like be such an ardent supporter, and then they're the worst villain on the planet the next day. So
it's it's not a surprise, I guess, since Musk is in the in the White House with the Doge and doing all these cuts to.
But I think with a product design background, one of the things that you learn about is how when someone buys something, that is an indication of who they are, right? Like people buy things that kind of represent their identity. Like, I like a nice solid cast iron pan versus kind of a cheaper whatever non-stick pan
or all these nerds with their Apple products.
Yeah, or
as an example,
nerds sitting right in front of you.
Example.
That whatever represents what you value, right?
Brent has an Apple, by the way.
So, but I think of all these poor purchasers of Teslas. They pay all this money to have like this brand represent them, and then like 3 months later, the brand is a completely different thing, and it's totally thrown out the window.
Have you seen the bumper stickers?
No.
They have like safety bumper stickers or whatever, right? I bought this before Elon was
before the tweets.
Bleep.
Yeah.
Those are the people are putting these on their vehicles. So they can be like. So
it's just hilarious how the brand identity changes and your loyalty to it. Like, yeah, maybe we should try and throw Coke under the bus. See if
let's not do that. Well, you see the tide turning, right? Toyota just announced they're no longer promoting any kind of LGBTQ whatever, any pride events.
Yeah,
like, done globally, not doing it anymore.
Who's not doing that?
Toyota.
Okay.
So
pendulum is swinging.
Oh yeah. There's been a number of companies who've backed off of that stuff.
See, I called this. I called that.
Did you call it?
Yeah.
When did you call it?
I don't know. In my head a few years ago.
Okay.
So this is unsustainable. This is, if you think about a corporation, their motivation for supporting or whatever, generally speaking, I don't think it's on principles. I think it's more on monetary. We're like, can I get a reward for standing up for this cause? The corporations that stand up for values that they actually believe in are a lot fewer than those who kind of go with the flow and ebbs and flows of culture and like, hey, I want to believe in this because I'm going to sell more products. Well,
Yeah. And I mean,
that's in the best interest of my shareholders. Well, let's do this.
Exactly. So it is interesting in Musk's case. What really turned the tables for Musk like you
besides like launching every company and disrupting every industry.
Yeah, but he was still
Mars.
liberal, right? He was still left, as were so many in the Trump administration, right? Either slightly left leaning or former wokeists. Anyways, it was the trancing of one of his children, and so you can say whatever you want about Musk and his parenting skills, which are, probably not up there. I mean, great engineer, whatever else, parent, not so much. He's got a lot of children by different women, but one of his sons was, tranced without his consent. And he was just like shell shocked by this. And he was like, I'm done with the left. Like, that's it. And he turned on them and then had this sort of journey to where he is now. And that's at the heart of why people hate him so much. It's not just because of his association with Trump, but it's because he is a former member of the woke left and he rejected their ideology after seeing firsthand what it would do. And like, that is the ultimate, that's blasphemy, right? You look at it in a religious context. It's heresy, it's blasphemy, he's apostate. And I mean, like, make no mistake, it is a religion with the woke left. And so of course, they will do whatever they can to destroy him. And his unholy alliance with Trump is just further evidence of his heresy. So of course, do whatever you can to destroy this man.
Yeah. If you think it's not a spiritual war, you are mistaken.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I'm not, like, I know we've been beating up on Carney and the Liberal Party and all this stuff. I'm not saying that there is a religious equivalence to Christianity and the Conservative Party of Canada.
Yeah, that's a strong alliance. No.
Yeah, I'm not saying that like that's not true. It does so happen that the Conservatives tend to represent more Christian values, in my opinion, but not entirely, right? I'll never go on record saying that, like, yeah, you have to vote Conservative if you're a Christian. But I mean, if you're voting for these other clowns, you really got to question your
all right.
question your motivation.
What else we got in our notes here? It's like,
speaking of heresy, Brent's like, oh, let's change the subject. Come on. Okay, what about new home sales in the GTA, Mark? What about that?
Yeah. Hey, let's
There's always
They're way up. They're way up.
I find, Brent, in most podcasts, good ones
when
anyways,
they get to the hard truth, they stop, they pivot.
No. There's like one guy who's out there, and the other one who's just like,
pulling them. The much more reasonable, realistic.
Yeah. I think you need that. It's like it's like commentators, right? Yeah. You got your
anyways. Let's just not talk about that. Let's talk about what we're supposed to be talking
about. He's doing it again. Home sales. Not looking good, right? How many completions did we have in Canada?
3,800. That is not sales. That is completions of new housing. Yeah, single family completions across Canada.
Oh yeah, this is just single family.
So that number means
no condos.
Yeah, that number means nothing. Oh, we got someone here. That number means nothing if in relation to anybody else and by
itself, in isolation.
Yeah. So single family homes way down over the last since 1980. No, we're just not building them. But this is the lowest monthly tally since 1997.
Which is what was our population in 97? It was a lot lower.
I don't know, you were saying 20 million? Like half
that was
much? Just a guess.
A guess off the top of my head. Probably 23.
For all those listeners who are live in 97, message us in what the population was. But this is a very low level of housing supply. And our friend Ben Rabideau.
Just about 30 million, by the way.
Okay, yeah. So per capita housing completions, like it would be even more further down, right?
Oh yeah, way down.
But his comment is that this is ultimately going to be the balancing mechanism of what is currently a soft resale market. So homes, like there's not as many resale homes for sale, and we're not building any either. So what's that going to do in the next few years?
Well, so new home sales, we're just talking home sales in the GTA, and this would be condos and single family, was in February. So the average for February is, or last 10 years, about 2,600 almost per month, like for February. It was 400 sold in February. And it was not quite half and half, but close to it for single family versus condos. Like fewer 170 single family homes and 230 condos.
I think it's the worst start of the year for GTA home sales in the last 15 years.
Yeah. It's just, and so inventory is building up. There's 11 months of inventory, which is, I think, a pretty strong buyer's market. So yeah, it's not looking great right now for new home sales for the construction industry. And it's, you could say like, well, whatever, it all evens out. But I mean, we're talking a bit of a longer term problem, because all the people who were building homes, which is huge in Canada, all the guys that had jobs and gals, like framing, mudding, plumbing, whatever, like they're going somewhere else. And they're probably not going to make that decision like, well, I'll just do this until things pick up. Some people will. A lot of people are just going somewhere else, doing something else, right? Maybe they're moving out of the GTA. Maybe they're finding a different career. Like when we want to build more houses, we're not going to have the workforce. Yeah. Because we sure are not importing people to build homes, right? Cooks, yes. Maybe I should just...
That's another...
Maybe I should just mention that. So we have these qualifications for immigration, and we have the express entry program. So that's like, hey, if you're like a skilled engineer or a biophysicist, or I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm going to say it is, like we want you, right? Which is what we should do, best and brightest. So now the Department of like IRCC, immigration and whatever else, has added cooks to the express entry list. So like there's no differentiation between, a cook at a 1-star Michelin restaurant versus somebody like at Denny's,
Well, in my opinion, eggs. There is. So,
well, I'm a man of unrefined taste, Brent, so
it's all the same. Let's just eat it.
Yeah. Get food in my belly. No, but I mean, like when you're considering
wait, aren't these European leaders of ours more refined and civilized? Like they're taking a note out of the U.S. playbook here by just kind of not differentiating between fast food and real food.
We don't have those. We only have Carney. We don't have the other guys yet.
Okay. Oh, we'll get them all in here.
Should I point out that like his cabinet is almost entirely the same,
and they only eat at Michelin star restaurants.
It's almost entirely the same cabinet as under Trudeau. They've all been shuffled to different positions, but it's all the same people.
You just find every opportunity to throw these guys under the bus.
I'm doing what I can. Honestly, Brent, I am so discouraged by these polls, and I'm hoping they're wrong, because if you look at turnout for events, like you get a huge turnout for Polyev and very small turnout for Carney.
Yeah, but one thing is for sure, that we will experience suffering in this life, and you must be long suffering. And if you think 10 years is long, well, maybe we need to go for longer.
Yeah, it's long enough. We also have to be good stewards.
Okay.
And so this is my concern, right? Sorry, and just another dagger at Carney. Like when he does have events, he has to like lock people out. Right? Like the fishermen and out east there.
Yeah.
They actually locked the doors because a bunch of fishermen were coming to protest. Anyways, he's not doing himself any favors or avoiding like the French language debate. But no, I find it very discouraging. Again, and mainly this is because of my kids, right? I look at the last decade that we've just had in terms of productivity and everything else. Like it's been brutal, right? And I don't know if I want to be around for the next 10 years as my kids grow up and get jobs and find careers and stuff, while this happens again. Like I can't do it. It's so So, I'm not making any promises here, but like if the Liberals win either a minority or majority,
We are going to do a
in the next
remote
election,
podcast.
yes, it will be remote from somewhere in the States. So hopefully Trump lowers the price on those
The
gold
gold
card.
visas.
Gold visas. Oh,
You didn't get yours yet?
My application is in. Just waiting on the funding.
Waiting on the funds.
$5 million.
You can actually get a loan from the Bank of Canada to fund your $5 million visa to the States. That's brilliant, by the way. We launched ours in Canada, but no one bought any. So I don't know.
In case you're not, you don't know what we're talking about, the States had they announced a visa program. It was called the Gold Card, Gold Visa, and it was $5 million would buy you citizenship in the United States. Basically, if you got the money, get the citizenship and come over. And I don't even know if people are actually coming over, if they're just buying it
To get the passport.
to have the passport. Although there's implications, right?
This is kind of like Willy Wonka, you know?
Oh, the golden ticket?
Golden ticket, yeah.
Sort of. But
Well, you see the picture of these smiling celebrities with a gold card. It's like, well, we can go there and we can have fun.
I wonder if Augustus Gloop, a.k.a. Augustin Carson's got his. That was mean. That was mean.
That was mean. Yeah.
But no, there's implications. If you have U.S. citizenship, now the IRS has dibs on all of your worldwide income, which is like, I'm thinking if you're, if you're wealthy, that'd be a tough decision for sure. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's ways around that. But that's the golden ticket, aka the gold. We're gonna start calling Trump Willy Wonka.
He's not giving them away. This is to eliminate the U.S. debt, which, by the way, is at 36 trillion, 653 billion, 320,000, 321,000, 322,000. So
it's a lot of thousands.
Yeah, I think we did the math, right? He would have to sell 1,000 of these tickets for $5 million. He's to sell 1,000 a day for 20 odd years to eliminate that debt. Well, because they're kind of saying this is the way that they're gonna eliminate the U.S. debt or make a big dent in it. It's like, we sell these for $5 million. You sell 1,000. That's a big chunk of change, right?
It is a big chunk of change.
So,
but compared to an enormous chunk of change,
that's 20 years is a long time.
Yeah, you're not doing that. And that's even all the cuts with the Department of Government Efficiency and all this stuff is like, it's a drop in the bucket.
Hardly makes it
right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the new Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said, like, we can't get rid of the debt immediately, but we're going to start making like big changes now. And that's what they have to do just to keep the wheels on the bus turning so that we can throw people under the bus. What else? And just in Canada, the population of non-permanent residents is declining slightly. It went down like a small bit of a percentage point. But I heard a number of something like 230,000 or so in the last year have left, which is interesting.
Why did they leave?
Because it's so expensive here.
False promises.
Well, and also, the promises being broken, them realizing that they're not guaranteed to get Canadian citizenship, or they just walked across the border into the United States. And we don't know how many that is, right? But
they left on paper, but they stayed here.
More than zero. That too is possible. So the government has stated they want to get the number from 7.1%, whatever it is now, to below 5%.
That has a big impact on rents because these people they are non-permanent. Or
Correct.
what Ben Rabideau calls them pre-permanent, I guess. But in the interim, while they're studying or working on their temporary kind of status, they're renting more than likely. And and we've seen like the spike in non-permanent residents the last few years and the rent growth, especially, I don't know, Hamilton, where we are, definitely seen it.
Yeah.
But I think all these kind of college towns as well, right? Wherever there's a university or college, just a big jump. And then the units that people are renting, like the quality of them going down or the size of them going down or the number of people per unit, right? To try and improve affordability. That's basically the only way you can do it, right? If there's a limited number of housing supply, we just talked about them not building any.
Well, unless you're building new student rent. I mean, some people have.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, like even just through the folks at Rockstar and some of the people like chatting with them, right? Where they're like, no, we got a house and we've renovated it and like every bedroom has an ensuite.
Yeah.
But we're charging $1,200 a month
for the room.
And
they share the common areas.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, like, okay, it's nice. It's upscale. They got granite counters and whatever. It's all very nice, but still $1,200 a room for a student, like that per month, by the way.
That's the Canadian dream right there. But rents have been cooling off. We've noticed it too, just in our own work, refilling units. I don't know if you've seen it on your end, but units that we filled 2-3 years ago, they're coming in around the same, maybe even a bit lower in some cases. Definitely from the peak. And I don't know if that trend continues as these that the government tries to meet their non-permanent resident targets and reduce population a little bit, but that segment in particular is directly tied to the rent. Yeah. I think you'll continue to see a decline until we still way higher than like 5-10 years ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're not going back to those numbers because we just look at the population. We just have that many more people. We have that much more cash in the economy. So,
because there's a headline that, rents are plummeting or whatever. And so for an investor looking at the market, you have to be prudent with where your rent expectations are before you're buying something or if you're developing something. But I wouldn't say it's like blood in the streets. There's nobody renting. There's tons of people renting. It's just, prices have softened from the peak. And I think over the next little while, if they continue to do this non-permanent resident thing, trying to get people out of here, then it'll soften a bit further.
Well, I mean, rent is softening, but that's, I think, driven by prices. Like resale home prices have softened quite a bit as well, right? And like one just sort of follows the other because you rent, if you want a cash flow, like here's your number.
You need a little bit less. Interest rates came down. You need a little bit less to cash flow.
Yeah, and interest rates are likely to continue coming down from what we hear, right? RBC has predicted, I think, 2% by 2 to 2.25% by the end of the year. And what did Ben say? Ben's saying 2% by the summer. Yeah.
So I like Ben. I don't know. Get him back on.
Let's vote for Ben.
He's a good guy, great guy. Love his interest rate predictions.
He's got the best numbers, only the best. Well, I mean, the proviso with the bank predictions is that, this is based on things not getting a lot worse, right? If the trade war gets worse, which
there's this. This is our prediction with the big caveat at the end, like provided the global economy doesn't deteriorate into a state of like.
As long as nothing goes wrong.
Yeah, as long as Carney doesn't get elected. If we axe the tax, what are we doing? What are we doing now? Did we axe this tax?
Yeah, you don't see that anymore because they axed it. Okay, they axed half of it, not the industrial portion. So you just said there's not blood in the streets. It's a little bit gloomy. You're looking at this as an investor. You're like, ooh, got to be careful. Rents are going down. Prices are also down, but that's in the short term, right? Housing starts, we just talked about them, starts have dropped, sales have dropped, everybody's holding on to their money. But
as an investor, you don't want to make a short-term or a short-sighted decision either, right? Like you don't want to make a decision that's, tariffs are coming, so I'm going to postpone any kind of financial planning or whatever for my 30-year future. Yeah. Well, you think tariffs are going to be here for 30 years or not? Like, are we going to wait 6 months to a year to find out what, look for opportunities now, make a well-informed decision and make a principled decision based on, cash flow, based on longer term trends and not these kind of short windows. I always get frustrated by that. But if you look at what is the provincial planning statement from the province of Ontario.
Yes.
This is from 2024, October, but we didn't go through it, Mark, because we're not on the news. So we're going through it now in 2025. It's already half a year old. But it kind of gives you a sense of where the direction's going. How do they see land planning uses changing? And, so not, hey, tomorrow, now all of a sudden you can do this. And it's like, 20, 30 years, this is kind of the stuff we want to see. So one of the interesting things to note was that agricultural land, kind of looking back, they've been really protective of it.
Yeah, hands off.
Right. It's prime. It's not to be touched. We don't want to develop this into housing. Certain areas, yes, but like we have this green belt, right, which is an artificially created thing that
is now sacrosanct.
Yeah. It's worship. There's altars, various stages along the Bruce Trail.
Asherah poles.
Yeah, Asherah poles. Oh, people are gonna have to read the Bible to get that joke. Yeah. So we'll let them do that. But now, they're saying. So they said in 2022, they said you can build up to 3 legal dwelling units on any urban residential lot. Yeah. Which. That's a logical step, right? You have kind of cities, you have infrastructure and services available. Well, let's do 3 units. That shouldn't be a problem. And that's been taken up quite well. It seems, investors are doing this. Yeah. But now they're talking about allowing kind of the same framework for agricultural land. And before that was like, we can't add dwelling units there.
Yeah, don't even talk about that.
There's so much land, you can't do that. Like, so now, you can do, it's not law, it's not passed, it's not kind of adopted by the municipalities, but it's a guideline. And like you said earlier, it kind of directs like maybe their funding or programs in the future reference this. And adding dwelling units there is on their radar. So for greater certainty, what does it say? Where a residential dwelling unit is permitted on a lot in a prime agriculture area, up to 2 additional residential units shall be permitted in accordance with the provincial guidance, provided that where 2 additional residential units are proposed, at least one of these additional residential units is located within or attached to the principal dwelling at any additional residential units, blah, 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 blah. See, I'm doing
now you're doing
my layperson. Important to know that you're going to have to put in a septic system, probably a separate septic system.
Yeah.
We've run into that a number of times, but it's not, we get so many phone calls. Is it just like a bunkie in your backyard? It's like, no, it has to have a kitchen, it has to have a bathroom. It's building a house in your yard, and the city will only allow you to do that if you have proper services. And if you don't have an adequate septic system, well, you're going to have to put one in. So that's a big difference in cost for a rural ADU or like a detached dwelling versus one in town that's hooked up to the services of the city.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, because also you may have to relocate your existing septic.
Yeah.
Because before it was just in the backyard wherever.
Somewhere,
it didn't matter, right?
There's so much land.
Yeah. Now it's like, no.
Now it has to be strategically placed. And so either you can't build on top of it, but you also need a secondary one or double the size of your current one. And so.
But it is interesting, just the change in language and thinking and tone from the government of Ontario. Like
more density.
Redevelop brownfield sites. Agricultural land is not hands off anymore. So, but that points to the longer term trend, right? Which we're talking about. Like it looks a little bit gloomy now, but what about in 5 years or in 10 years, right? If we have basically single family new home construction stop
is dead. Yeah.
It's pretty well dead. And
I could just see like contractors getting a permit package for a single family home. It's like, what's this? How come there's only one kitchen? Like, what's going on? This is the biggest ADU I've ever seen.
But that idea is kind of gone in Ontario. And we were talking about Ontario here and other, major urban centers. The skilled labor force doesn't exist anymore. So when we want to start building again, like what's going to happen? It's going to be a very long time to start those wheels turning, right? Because we're just not going to have any.
We've already got the wheels turning because CMHC has come out with a design catalog for a range of different housing types for all across Canada that are like pre-approved.
Well, I think that's cool. At least the idea, right? Maybe
but if you're looking at trends, they have, ADUs, stacked townhouses, fourplexes, sixplexes, right? That like higher density. There's no single family on this.
That's interesting. Well, because
what is a family, Mark? What is a family?
You're getting so philosophical on me, Brent. Hakuna Matata, no one gets left behind or something. I don't know. No, but they had a similar catalog like after the war, right?
Yeah.
Where like, here's the homes. And that's why you see like the wartime homes, all very similar because they were just building out of the catalog. But yeah, it saves a lot of time. And I mean, part of, so there's BUILD, the BILD. I can't remember what it stands for anymore, but it's like a home builders advocacy group.
Yeah.
And, just in response to the paucity of new home building, they're saying like, we have to cut.
Paucity is way beyond the average.
See, there we go. I gotta speak to the
Put your filter back on.
Yeah. Because they ain't building many homes.
Yeah.
Is that good enough for you?
There you go.
They're saying like, look, guys, we need to cut development charges, development fees. Like you can have a catalog, you can do all this stuff, make guidelines but like if development charges are still ridiculous, like the cost of what a home the whole development charge is what a home used to cost. Like that's crazy. You can't do that. So you got to cut those and you got to cut red tape, like the approvals and all that stuff. And until you do that, you're not going to solve the housing like the crisis. And I mean, like we're still in a crisis, right? I know rents are coming down and so
fundamentally.
Forth. Yeah. Because we still have a huge non-permanent resident population. And then we have family formations happening, right? We have growth. We don't have the houses to comfortably house everybody. So we still have a shortage. And it's just going to be made worse by the fact that we're stopping building. So it looks good right now.
So positive news, City of St. Catharines has we talked about this before, what is it called? The Housing Accelerator Fund. And they are giving out grants.
Yes.
For adding additional dwelling units to your property. So if you
a grant,
not a loan. So the difference there, strings. There's no strings attached. Well, there's some qualifications, but it's not like you got to pay this back. So free money from the government. Is anything free? I don't know. But $40,000 for an interior, so a unit that's inside of the home, and up to $80,000 for a detached dwelling. So it was good. We've actually had applied for these, and it's a pretty straightforward program.
Really?
It's really not that onerous, and they've seen pretty good uptake. That's what they're saying anyways.
Yeah.
And
you think?
Yeah. Free money, and apparently it's all gone. So it was all gone. There was a certain point a couple weeks ago where it basically just said, we're still accepting applications on a first come, first served basis, but we're not issuing approvals because there's no
for
funding.
2025.
Well, this was 2 weeks ago. And now there's a new article out as of this week that says, they have a new batch of funding from the federal level that's coming down, so they're good to go. And
you guys were so good at giving away money, we're going to give away more.
The mayor says thank you to the federal government, so I thought that was a good statement. And then he said the City of St. Catharines is proud to be a Housing Accelerator Fund recipient.
You're proud to be a recipient?
Yeah.
Wow, I would be proud to be a recipient of the So bank accounts stimulation fund.
So if you're living in a house in St. Catharines, or you're investing and considering where, put this on your radar that there is funding available, and it's a great opportunity. I mean, it's a significant dent. If you're building a detached ADU, they're not cheap. Like you're building a house in your backyard. Yeah. So that's where I think the average homeowner sees this in the news. And they're like, "Oh, I have a backyard, and I could get $80,000." Yeah, well, it's not like you're building a shed and then you just get $80,000. It's you're building a house with sewer and heat and whatever, the whole 9 yards, and it's takes a long time and it costs a lot of money, and you have to get the permit, you have to do your proper engineering and all this stuff, but you get $80,000. It's not insignificant.
No,
so
100%.
What the big thing though is, how are these properties going to be valued? And so that's a question we get so often, where someone says, okay, I'm prepared to take this risk and build take a risk. I'm prepared to build something in my backyard and rent it out. And the numbers look good, right? Because, projected rent covers my expenses, and it covers my borrowing cost to build this thing, and then some by, quite a decent margin. Sometimes it's like, $500 to $1,000 a month in positive cash flow, which is, it's a great investment, right? You talked about trying to find investments that are free from development charges. Yeah. And this is one where you don't even have to buy land. So you're not paying, for the transaction and the land transfer and all this stuff. But if I do this in my backyard, what is going to be the potential value, right? So what we haven't seen is somebody go through this process and sell it and then go, look, I just made $300,000 more than market value on my property because I have a detached dwelling in my backyard. And that's, I think that remains to be seen. Like, this housing catalog from CMHC has all accessory dwelling units in it. It has, like all kinds of different configurations and sizes for everyone's backyard. But yeah, maybe there's uptake, maybe there's not. If there is, what we need to see is the build happen, and then the sale of the property to get a good sense of value. Because right now, like, I think people are a bit hesitant to take the next step to build something until they know with confidence. But yeah, there's always going to be trailblazers. And
I did read an article a while back saying like they're not really seeing a big increase in valuations. Yeah, that was one article. I don't know what the angle.
And I think what that is that the valuations are not necessarily sales, they're appraisals, right? Like, the banks and the lenders are not willing to stick their neck out on something like this either. Yeah. So we have to put them to the market. Yeah, it has to be, hey, one sold in St. Catharines or one sold in Hamilton. Well, that's great, but that one was the one in the newspaper that everyone saw, and everyone it has to be 100 sold this year, and like, this is the current market status. Yeah. So, but usually if you wait 10 years,
now you're the trailblazer.
Yeah. Now all of a sudden the opportunity's lower. So yeah. It's
like I said, remains to be seen. Which reminds me of my funeral plans. I'm going to have an open, like a glass covered coffin. Yeah. With a note for the funeral directors: remains to be seen.
Oh boy. You stick around to the end, folks, and you get the best of the dad jokes.
Oh, the best of the best. Yeah. Okay, one more quick note before we sign off. I saw an ad from the EU, Eurozone Minister of, it's a big long name, but like preparedness and emergencies and yada yada. And it's just so funny because we talked about the Euro CBDC that's launching soon. And she's like, look, if something happens, and they're almost like they're prepping their populace for like a global war or something now that the US is like, nah, you guys deal with Ukraine. She's pulling out of her purse, like, I've got, my personal documents in a waterproof bag. And I've got like a survival kit. I have a Swiss Army knife. I have, this and that. And then one of the last things she pulls out is a big wad of cash. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you guys were against cash in the EU. Yeah, a little bit. But just whatever you can fit in your purse. Right. They would not advocate like being self-sufficient in your house. But I'm just like, don't you guys talk? Like, you're trying to get rid of cash, right? And
you just see the picture of the central bank guy, like palm to forehead. Oh, man. We're trying to get rid of that. Put that back in your purse.
Oh, man. Okay, I know I said one last thing, but like, in the words of the great Detective Columbo, wow, excuse me, ma'am, one more thing. Luke Groman had a note out looking at a note from the Atlanta Fed So this is one of the Federal Reserve banks, and they put out research notes and stuff, which are generally quite boring, and it's easy to miss stuff. But they had real GDP growth. So here's the boring part. Quarter one of 2025 in the United States was minus 1.8%. Adjusted for gold imports or exports, it's actually positive 0.2%. So Luke Groman, who's a great analyst, and he's a pro Bitcoin guy as well. He was like, who is importing so much gold into the U.S. that it is cutting GDP in a $27 trillion economy by 2%? Like 2% of that GDP was, right? Like it's by importing, you're cutting the growth and cutting it by 2% of the actual GDP. Like, whoa, like that's a huge number of
I'm just thinking about all this gold centralized in one place. There's got to be a lot of weight in that area, eh? Like that. I think it's probably going to shift the tectonic plates. If they should, as a strategic move for everyone's safety and security, they should shift to Bitcoin, which just doesn't have any weight.
Exactly, except for the data centers.
Yeah.
But it's just indicative of a broader trend where people are sort of opting out, and you've seen like gold and silver prices have increased a lot. And people are switching to gold, right? And, is that gold actually moving? I don't know. Is it moving from the UK?
Yeah.
And there was some, I don't know if we want to get into it, but just the way that U.S. debt is being priced, and especially euro dollars, they're moving away from sort of the LIBOR system, the London Interbank operational rate. I can't remember what it stands for, but something like that, where basically the Bank of England was able to price out U.S. debt, like EU, to the U.S. is like, no, we want to control the price of that debt now, which helps you control the issuance. And so they're moving away from that. So it's, I think it's tied to that somehow, but we don't need to get into that.
We should do an episode with just full of acronyms next time.
I'm totally up for that.
Folks, we could do this all day, but we're wrapping it up. Canada, great country, weak leadership, housing, disaster, economy, crumbling, carny, crooked as a $3 bill. And the EU running around with go bags like the end is near. But here's what you can be ready for. Our next episode. It's going to be huge. Best one yet. Don't miss it. Oh, man.
Oh, thank you.
We certainly wouldn't
President
be on the
Trump.
air without ChatGPT and Trump. Eh?
No, we sure wouldn't. Well, okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Trump. And until next time.
Steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
If you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To learn more about the show, head on over to twostewards.ca and explore our free resources. To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We will see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.
Nailed it.